Hello, divine beings of light. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Cosmic Acacia here. It's been a while since I've done a podcast, probably around a month or so. I've been going through my spiritual path for a few years now. And I did pull a card pretty soon after my last podcast to find out what spirit wanted me to talk to you about next. And the card came out entitled Transformation. And I believe there's a reason why it took me so long to do this podcast, because I've recently gone through a pretty major transformation that I believe Spirit wanted me to share with you. So that's why it's taken so long for me to make this podcast. I'm going to talk about my spiritual transformation that I've lived through since the beginning of my journey. And I'm going to use the caterpillar and the chrysalis and the butterfly as an example of my personal transformation. I usually like to start my podcasts with a poem. Today, I'm going to start my podcast with a poem, and I'm going to end it with a poem. I got this poem off the internet, but it didn't have an author, so I'm assuming it was generated by AI. The title of this poem is called The Metamorphosis of Soul. Upon the leaf the worm did crawl, obeying every rigid call. It measured out the world in green by rules and structures, safe and seen. A structured faith, a narrow path, to avoid the fear of broken wrath. But deeper within, a whisper grew, a quiet stirring, inner view. It spun a tomb of silk and thread, where the old form was surrendered, dead. In deepest dark, the chrysalis slept, while silent, sacred secrets kept. No longer crawling, bound to ground, the rigid shackles now unbound. It breaks the shell, a new breath drawn, the dawn of soul light, brightly dawn. With wings of vibrant, tender grace, it flies in open, boundless space. It drinks the nectar, wild and free, a spirit in high melody. The law is gone, replaced by love, guided by the light above. A radiant soul in colors bright, the caterpillar winged in flight. As my example of my transformation, I have been in the caterpillar stage since birth. And in that caterpillar stage, I viewed myself as unworthy, insecure, full of fear, unloved. I had to become the person others wanted me to be in order to be loved and accepted. I had to perform and be obedient in order to be loved and accepted. I hid my emotions and I suppressed trauma. I was born into a religion and a religious family that I took on as truth, believing that it was the Bible was the Word of God, and the religion I was in was the only way to God. I never searched for myself. I just accepted their faith because if I didn't, I would be abandoned. So, and then when I came to the realization that I decided to do my own research and my own searching and decide for myself what to believe based on my truth and my searching, I came to the realization that my religion was an illusion. So at that point, the only word I can use to describe my feelings at that point in my life was despair. Because since my religion was an illusion, I had no identity at that point because my identity was my religion. I I I rejected my authentic self when I was younger because I was told what I wanted to do was not godly. So I had to put my authentic self aside and become, like I said, the person that they wanted me to be in order to be loved and accepted. So I had no personality. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted because in my religion, I was programmed to really not have an identity because we were not taught self love. We were not taught self value. We were taught self always came last. Jesus was always first, others were always second, and you were last. So I felt despair at this point. So that is the point where me as a caterpillar was beginning my chrysalis stage, my dark night of the soul, where I didn't know who I was, what I wanted. I didn't know anything at that point but despair. So I started forming my chrysalis. And in that chrysalis, that self that had to be created in order to be loved and accepted and valued had to die, had to become goo in that chrysalis. I had to find out who I really was and create that new self. So that's when I began my shadow work with my spirit teacher, finding out who I was, bringing up all those subconscious traumas and everything that involved. I started the shadow work. Well, I also believe that plant medicine was created by Source in order to help us in our spiritual growth. It's natural. It has helped me on my journey. I've done it a few times. The first time I did plant medicine, I always do the plant medicine when I get to a point in my shadow work where I kind of am stuck, where things are too deeply in the subconscious to come out on their own. So my first plant medicine experience was to feel the pain of my inner child because I didn't know who I was. And my inner child went through stuff that I didn't remember because at that point we had been separated because of the trauma and programming in order to survive. So the first plant medicine experience I had was to feel the pain of that part of myself that wasn't able to experience that pain at that time. So I spent that experience releasing deep emotions and despair that was in my body that needed to be released in order to heal. So I spent that time releasing those emotions, which lasted probably 3 hours or more. The second time I did a plant medicine experience, I grieved the loss of that inner child's spirit. It was a little different from the first one. It was both a grieving process, but they were different. The third plant-based medicine experience that I did was letting go of fear, doubt, and worry through breath. I would inhale. My intention was to inhale trust, peace, and calm with every breath, and to release fear, doubt, and worry with every exhale. So that was a major, major change in my life as well. That now with every breath in and every breath out, I do those. I breathe in trust, calm, and peace, and I breathe out fear, doubt, and worry. The last one, which I just did a week and a half ago, was to bring back my inner child and my energies together. As I tried to say a little bit earlier, my spirit teacher explained to me that my traumas and programming started so young that when I was born, I was whole. And my programming and traumas started so young that those parts of my subconscious had to separate in order to survive those traumas and programming. So I forgot how to be whole because it happened when I was so young. So this last plant-based experience I had, my intention was to align and intertwine both of our energies back together, bringing us back into union, thus remembering how to be whole again, activating or cultivating unconditional love, strength, and courage. So that's what I did this last plant-based experience. And I did a automatic writing about it after the experience. And I want to share that part of the writing with you so you kind of know what I experienced in that. As I began to repeat my intention during this medicine experience, as I began to repeat my intention out loud about bringing my inner child and I back into union, intertwining our energy, my cat came and laid on my body. I have always looked at my cat as being the spirit of my inner child based on some of my past medicine experiences that I've had. And as she came and laid on me, I immediately felt the intertwining and alignment of our energy, my inner child and my energy, the light, the power, the bliss. It was unspeakable, unconditional love and oneness with all that is. Such completeness and fulfillment. This is the part of me that has been missing. I got to be in this place of oneness to the point that nothing and no one else mattered. Spirit, let me experience this union of our energies to the point of me realizing that this was the part of me that had the joy, the wonder, and the magic that I had been missing all my life. She was the part of me that made life an adventure. Losing her was why I didn't know what I wanted or needed in my life. That part of me that I didn't even realize that I had lost was now home where she belonged. And not only did I come to the awareness of that part of me coming back and becoming whole again, but I also realized that I was reconnected to my godself. That divine spark, divine light being part of me that was created in the image of God. That is what I also felt, that experience was for me to remember my God self and the divine spark that resides within me. So at that point, I reached the butterfly stage of oneness, fulfillment, rebirth. My soul had broken free from a restrictive belief system that helped me to find the divine spark within. Help me remember the divine spark within, letting go of that restrictive belief system, thus giving me spiritual freedom. I now was free spiritually. Definitely a start to my new beginning. My new beginning of fulfilling my purpose and being the divine light being I was created to be. So I believe that was what Source Spirit wanted me to share with you about my transformation. I'm going to now read the next poem that I found. It also doesn't have an author, and it must have been also AI generated, but it's called The Unshackled Wing. Once I crawled upon the leaf of doctrine, measuring my worth by strict, cold lines, a caterpillar in a shell of rigid dogma, fearing the shadow of forbidden signs. I believed the cocoon was the only truth, a dark, narrow space where I must abide, following rules to keep the spirit hidden, trapping the divine essence deep inside. But the soul cannot be contained forever, and the heart began to break the outer wall. I surrendered to the silent, dark surrender, to rise above the earthly, heavenly call. I shed the skin of old tradition, unfurling wings painted in the light. The stillness was the only teacher needed to prepare the trembling, quiet soul for flight. Now I soar above the walls of judgment, no longer confined by fear or creed. A butterfly of the spirit, free and open, drinking the nectar of a loving deed. I found the divine not in a temple, but in the breath, the wind, the open sky. Religion was the crawling, quiet chrysalis. Spirituality is the wings with which I fly. So I like to finish my podcast with a oracle card. And today I got a new deck entitled Trust by Moon Magic, I think it's called. Moon Magic. Trust. So I'm going to pull the card that's for the collective's highest good. I cleanse this deck, and I ask you to like and subscribe, and share this video with whoever you think would benefit from it. And I also am open to any questions or comments that you have about my journey, or comments about what I've said, or anything you'd like to share with the collective is welcome also. So, oops. Hope. We got hope. Let me read what the book says about hope. Let's see, hope. A promise can be beautiful, yet it becomes a tether to the future. There is a limitation, a constriction in that. And hope? Hope is the quiet ache of possibility, that feeling that's somewhere between painful and delicious, the telling of something yet to be, that really could be, that you really wish to be. It is a moment of wonder rising inside, a dream of the possibility of full potentiality, where there is a joy, a marveling at the way light finally finds its way in. And how beautiful, even if all it ever is the hope for that. So thinking about hope and the emergence of the butterfly, a marveling at the way light finally finds its way in, and the soaring of the butterfly. How beautiful, even it is, if all it ever is the hope for that, the light when the butterfly emerges from that chrysalis. So again, thanks for being here today. And until next time, namaste.